you are a CEO, because you want to have that confidant, you want to get real feedback, but people are afraid to actually give it to you because you're their boss. So he realized with the culture of Steeple when he first got there, they were a mishmash. And there was like not as much direction. And there were a lot of problems. That entire meeting, people were like, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, we need this fixed, we need to do this. And it was a meeting upon meeting of problems. So he sat there the first day, went to all the meetings, made the mental notes. The next day he came in and he went around the room and said, okay, you fix this thing in IT, you do this, and we'll have another meeting the next time we have problems. That was about 10 years ago. He realized that within the organization, you had to create like this accountability and this teamwork, which they didn't have. It was all about, well, I'm just telling you what this problem is and that's it. So for them to stay the course, he had to literally build it all the way back up. Like, what is Steeple? What are we doing? What are our objectives? How are we going to get there? And based on all of that, he said, they created this culture where it was this teamwork mentality. They all had to buy in, like a successful culture for a company is every individual in that organization has to be part of that team. And every CEO that I have ever worked with, be it Alan Mulally of Ford, Ron Kraszewski, David Rubenstein of Carlisle, they have all told me that they have lost good people on paper, like, great resume, nice person, but they didn't fit. So either they leave because they're not part of like the greater picture, or they have to let them go. But in the end, it's better for them and for the organization because they're not happy. I mean, we're going to work the majority of our lives. We should be happy doing it, right? I mean, why not? It's a simple thing. And good employers, good leaders, they love what they do. They've got that passion. And when you make that hire or you're with your colleagues, you want to surround yourself with people that have that passion. Of course, they're not going to have the same strengths and weaknesses as yourself, because as a team, as we all know, everyone has to have different strengths and weaknesses to complement each other. But with that piece, staying the course, it's so vital in terms of making sure that everybody in the organization has like their own pyramid, because that way they can work together so you can have your execution. And that's where the fine details are. In that level of the pyramid, I actually focus solely on David Rubenstein of the Carlisle Group. And David is, I don't know if anybody knows him here, but he's brilliant, has a really funny, dry sense of humor. Like anytime he comes on Squawk Box, he always has these deadpan jokes, and it's great because sometimes people get them and sometimes they don't. And he'll even poke fun of himself. Before the Beats deal, we had him on when he made the Beats investment, and he actually put a pair on. So we're like, what kind of music did we have on there? Like classical music? And he's just a brilliant guy. And the way that they've created Carlisle, particularly why I wanted to focus with them on the execution side, is the culture in terms of they have this one Carlisle culture, where if you go to his offices in DC, London, or even Tokyo, the posters on the walls, the tchotchkes on their desks, they're all identical. Everything is exactly the same. They have been able to successfully create a culture where no matter where you are in the world, the values, the way that they go about it, the interaction amongst the staff, and with each other from the different offices are the same. It's seamless. That's why they do so well when it comes to various acquisitions around the world. Their China office can easily work with their German office. And we all know that around the world there are cultural differences. They recognize them, but they have this greater good. They all come together in terms of what Carlisle stands for, what kind of investments they make, and how the strategies that they use are exactly the same. And what they do is that once a year, they actually honor one employee around the world with the one Carlisle Award. And it's like the most prestigious honor for an employee. So it's little things like that that actually help foster and create the building blocks, if you will, so that way you can execute. And every week in their weekly emails, they talk about their latest investment deals and how the Warren Carlisle culture has played into that investment. Now finally, we've got my favorite, world domination. And, and I focus on 3 women who formed BlogHer. Now, I don't know if any of you blog here, but the blogging sphere, back when it first started, had a very seedy past. It was more of like these fly-by-night journalist people that would just kind of write not so nice things, and it really wasn't journalistically sound. But these 3 women from BlogHer all had very good jobs. One was Lisa Stone, worked at CNN. She was a correspondent. Jory Desjardins worked in publishing. And then Lisa Campbell-Page worked in Silicon Valley. And all 3 of these women, while they were very good at what they did, they weren't happy. Lisa Campbell-Page told me that during the dot-com bubble, when everyone was getting their pink slips in Silicon Valley, she got upset because she didn't get one. All these people in her office were getting pink slips, and she went home fuming. She was like, I don't want to work here anymore. She's like, and then she realized herself, what's wrong with me? Like, all these people are losing their jobs in tech. We all knew how uncertain it was back then. Like, I really don't want to work here anymore. This is a really bad sign. So she went into her office, and she went to her boss and said, can you please lay me off? And the boss was like, no, we like you. She's like, but I don't want to work here anymore. So they said, okay, why don't we make you a consultant? So it dawned on her, like, well, what makes me happy? So she made a list. And I'm a huge list maker. I don't know if you guys are, but I love seeing things on paper. I write things down. It just helps me focus. And it dawned on her that she loves to write. So she started doing these little blogs, and she wrote a little blog review on the little Greek restaurant in town. She loved it there. And she says getting Greek food in San Francisco is very hard. I don't know, I've been to San Francisco once, but I'll take her word for it. And she went one day, and all of a sudden she sees about 20 of her former colleagues eating at this restaurant. And she's like, well, why are you here? So, well, we read your blog, and you know, it sounded really good, so we wanted to come. And that was her aha moment. She was like, wait a minute. I love what I'm doing here, and I'm actually making a difference. People are actually listening to me. This is kind of cool. So she created her blog, and then she started to go to these blogging conferences. And blogging conferences, you don't talk. You literally sit next to each other on your computer, and you just type. I'm going to talk to you by typing to you. Very not personal at all. So one day, Lisa was sitting in across the room at this blogging conference. She met eyes with Jory. And they struck up a little friendship, and they too were laughing like, hey, listen, this is kind of funny. We're not talking to each other. What can we do about it? And they created BlogHer, which is a company that creates conferences, let alone a platform for female bloggers now to get their message out. And what they found was, what the secret to the sauce was, Fortune 100 companies, Procter & Gamble, J&J, they go to these conferences because in order to get new products out, they want to go to the mommy bloggers. In today's social media, you get instantaneous feedback, good and bad. And they actually pay ads on these blog sites to capture consumers, to get buzz out on their products. I went to one of their conferences 2 years ago, and it was like, I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Home Depot conference in Las Vegas. It was hundreds of thousands of square feet of product. Every corporation was there, you know, hey, listen, this is our new product here. Why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? So they created something out of nothing. And now they have paid out over, I think, $12 million over the course of 2 years to bloggers, for them to write the written word. And for 3 years, when they created BlogHer, the 3 founders, they didn't take a salary. They put all their money into their company because they believed in it so much. They had to pay their employees. And everybody that they hired were like them. They were bloggers, and they would go to saying, listen, what kind of service are we going to provide? They call their clients and their customers a community. And that's a big word. I mean, if they talk about their community, that's their business. Those are their clients. And when you say community, it kind of gives you more of that personal touch, where we're all in this together. And that way they don't lose touch with what they're trying to do. I think sometimes, all too often, when you reach world domination or you're right at that cusp, that's when the arrogance starts coming in, that clouds your judgment. You want to still kind of keep grounded. And I think with them using the word community and them getting out there and also constantly evolving themselves, because as we all know, you need to evolve in order to succeed. I mean, look what happened with Microsoft. They now have to start evolving again. So